Golf can be a game of leisure, a time to get away from the world and just hang out with friends, but that's not all it is for people who spend their lives mastering their drives, chips, and putts. For those guys, it is a gateway to fame, status, and if they're lucky, unimaginable wealth. From purses to brand deals, these golfers have transformed their lives and used their money on some very glamorous items. So without further ado, let's look at some stupidly expensive things the golf stars own. And to start things off, it would be a disservice to go over this list without mentioning Tiger Woods and his lavish lifestyle. When Tiger Woods took over the golf game, he was special. It was the highest highs we have seen in the golfing world, and he sure as hell made a lot of money off of it as well. At first, let's take a look at his 155-foot super yacht that he acquired back in 2004 called the Privacy. This yacht, or pretty much a floating mansion, costs approximately $20 million and requires an additional $2 million per year just to keep it staffed and maintained. The vessel can hold a dozen guests and can hold a crew large enough for an elite experience. While at sea, Woods and his guests can chill in the jacuzzi, get some work in at the gym, or sit back and watch a movie at the theater. With all of this to offer and more, the yacht gives us a great representation of just why it is called Privacy, as it fulfills Woods' desires for privacy and seclusion while sailing in style. But he owns more than just this yacht. So how about we take a look at his private jet worth upwards of $50 million that he can use to go to tournaments, events, or wherever he wants to. This jet, a Gulfstream G550, can carry up to 19 passengers and has thousands of miles of range in the air. Like his yacht, Woods' jet allows him and guests to travel in comfort. For Woods and those in the sports industry, rest is just beyond needed, and his jet is a representation of the relaxation that his wealth has provided for him. Lastly, we have to talk about the house that Tiger Woods has made for himself on Jupiter Island that is rumored to be worth around $80 million. He first purchased the house for $40 million back in 2006 alongside his then wife Ellen. This 12-acre and 9,000 plus square foot house the property boasted was breathtaking, but Woods had other plans, tearing down the house to build one of his own. In 2010, two major things happened in Woods' life: his divorce with Ellen and the building of his new house on Jupiter Island. I mean, the property is so nice that it literally has a golf practice center for Woods to tee off on whenever he wants. It also includes a tennis court, a fitness center, an oxygen therapy room, multiple pools, and countless other amenities. Although the house has to deal with the problem of living on an island, it is still a perfect representation of the wealth he amassed over his successful career. But enough of Woods, let's move on to Bubba Watson, who has quite the collection of items and properties as well. The two-time Masters champion has made over $56 million in earnings over his career in the PGA and LIV tours, and he has shown it off. In 2013, Watson stunned the golfing world when he brought forth a fully functional hovercraft golf cart. Through a partnership with Oakley, Watson showed off the odd but interesting cart, driving it around courses. First dubbed the BW1, the golf cart combined the attributes of both a normal day-to-day golf cart and a futuristic one. The cart could be seen gliding, but not just on the green, as it could even glide over water hazards put on the course. The BW1 encompassed Watson's personality perfectly. Bubba has always set himself apart. From his pink drivers to his creative shot making and strategies, the lefty has always tried to put himself apart from the rest, and the BW1 did exactly that. But that's not all that Watson has to show for, because in 2012 he showed off his love for interesting vehicles when he purchased a $110,000 car right out of the old TV show Dukes of Hazzard. The car was dubbed a General Lee car, and it was a 1969 Dodge Charger, which became famous for a bright orange paint job, a Confederate flag design on the roof, and a big number 1 on the side of the car. Now, he painted over the flag for obvious reasons, but that just comes to show how vintage the car was. Now, this seems like an interesting item to purchase, but for Watson, it was a childhood dream. Growing up in Florida, Watson was a devoted fan of the show, and when he realized that he could scoop up a car from it, he did it immediately. And speaking of cars, let's shift gears and take a look at the car collection of golfer Ian Poulter, who has taken his love for cars to an obsessive level, but specifically his love for Ferrari. To be honest, I don't even know where to start, so let's just jump into it. He has a Type F120 Ferrari F40 worth somewhere around $2 million US, but he also has the predecessor to that car, the Ferrari 288 GTS, TPO, which was the first supercar that Ferrari produced. This twin-turbo V8 engine, which can hit a top speed of 189 miles per hour with ease, would go for somewhere around $500,000 today. But now let's move the other way and look at the car which followed the F40, the Ferrari F50, which harnesses a V12 engine that can take the car from 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds and is one of just 349 ever made. But I mean, we're just at the tip of the iceberg on this one, because just take one look at the Apertas he's got and you'll realize just how over the top his collection is. First, there's the 2015 Ferrari 458 Special Aperta, and that was, at the time of its introduction, the most powerful and technologically advanced vehicle that has ever come out of Ferrari. The F1 7-speed gearbox inside gives you a taste of just what this beast has to offer. It's literally just a street legal race car. And then there are his two LaFerrari Apertas, which are the prized possession of his collection. These things are just crazy expensive, but when you hear what they have to offer, you can at least begin to fathom why that is the case. The engine on this thing is a 6.3 liter F140 FE V12, which can bring a car from a complete stop to 60 miles per hour in just 2.8 seconds and can push it up to 220 miles per hour if you really want to. Many cars have reached the sub 3-second mark, but this thing is also incredibly rare. As a car collector, if you want to pick one of these things up, you're gonna have to give up an arm and a leg. Only 210 models were produced and only 200 models were sold. So that means if you're trying to find a relatively unused car, you're gonna have to pay $7 or $8 million. But even if you can get your hands on one that has put on some mileage, you're still gonna have to pay around $4 to $5 million. To round off his Ferrari collection, Poulter has a 1967 Ferrari 275 GTB4, a 2002 Enzo Ferrari, a F12 TDF, and a 2012 Ferrari FF. And while it seems like he might be favoring Ferrari, and well, he is, that doesn't mean that he discriminates against other brands. Just take one glance at his Bugatti Veyron and you'll see. Now this car can hit 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds and can get just above 253 miles per hour, and at its peak was the fastest street legal car out there, winning the car of the decade. To buy one of these, it'll cost you a little bit under $2 million, but for special editions, you'd better expect a higher price. And since you probably get the point about just how crazy this car collection is, we'll finish it off by mentioning his 2005 Ford GT and his Porsche GT2 RS, both of which are highly coveted, but in a car collection like that of Poulter's, they're just some of the cheaper ones. Now next up, we've got Phil Mickelson, and he's one of those guys who seems like he's been around forever, and he's currently playing in the LIV Tour in the twilight of his career, but who can blame him, as he was paid around $200 million to do so. So let's take a look at some of his assets. He did have a Gulfstream V-Jet worth around $40 million, but he sold that and now flies in private charters. At one point in time, Mickelson was addicted to gambling. Different numbers are thrown out as to how much he has wagered over the course of his life, with numbers reaching as high as $1 billion, but he has since given that up and has used his money in different ways, like bought a property in a San Diego neighborhood over the past 2 decades in order to create his own dream compound that will end up being worth around $100 million once it is all completed. He first started buying up the land in 2005, spending $14.1 million on 2 separate properties, but he wasn't done and bought 4 more acres 4 months later for just over $3 million. It took him 15 years to finally make a move on the properties around him, but once he offered one of his neighbors $25 million for their estate, they couldn't refuse. And then he splurged with another $25 million to buy another adjacent property. He hasn't made any headway since then, which was in 2020, but he definitely has his eyes set on it. Now let's pivot to another love of Mickelson's, his cars, starting off with his $10,000 custom golf cart, which Mickelson rides in style. His car collection is not as expansive as a guy like Poulter, but it's still pretty impressive. He got a Bentley Continental GT, which sold for $231,000 and can go as fast as 207 miles per hour thanks to the 512 horsepower and 568 feet of torque that it produces. And then there's his Aston Martin Vanquish, which is the most expensive car that Mickelson owns, and that is worth a little bit under $300,000. The Vanquish can fall into a category of luxury sports cars alongside Lamborghinis and Ferraris, and it doesn't hurt that it has a sleek design as well. Powered by a 6-liter V12 engine, is a unique blend of power, speed, and beauty, and is a car that most people could only dream of owning. Rory McIlroy made himself another household name alongside Mickelson in the golf world and has earned money somewhere in the 9 figures throughout his career. And he has not let those 9 figures go to waste. Starting things off hot, we have to take a look at the crazy mansion he's got in Florida. Although it set him back around $11 million when McIlroy purchased the plot in Florida, it now boasts a 9-bedroom, 10-bathroom house, and the property has probably doubled in worth since the ownership was passed on to him. The thing has a home theater, infinity pool, game room, state-of-the-art gym, and even a recording studio if that becomes useful to the lavish golfer. It's absolutely nuts, but from coast to coast, McIlroy also boasts quite the mansion in California as well. There is not a ton known about this house in comparison to the Florida mansion, but McIlroy definitely sits pretty there as he bought the La Quinta house for $12.3 million in 2019. To round this video out, we're going to go ahead and take a look at Dustin Johnson, and at the center of his empire, there is his house in Jupiter, Florida, which is near where Tiger Woods lives. This property, now worth somewhere around $18 million, gives Johnson plenty of time to keep his mind off of golf and on other things like fishing, which he can easily do with the water access that he has. Oh yeah, and he also boasts a pair of boats, a Viking 76 Sportfish, and a Bahama 41. Although Woods' yacht makes both of these two look like mere sailboats, they are much bigger than that. The Viking 76 is named that because it is a 76-foot long fishing yacht and has been known for high credentials in the fishing industry. And then there is the Bahama 41, which is exactly the boat you should be looking for if you want a nice fishing boat and you have the money for one. And last but not least, there are his investments, but there is one in particular I want to focus on because of the sheer amount he put in, and that is the brand OxyFit, which Johnson put $7.5 million into back in May of 2022. Golfers make a lot of money, and there is no doubt about that. However, in sports, you will normally see athletes go out and spend their money on stuff that is just so stupidly expensive, and golf is a perfect representation of that. These athletes perfect their stroke just to hit a tiny golf ball, but for those who are good enough to go pro, there is sure a lot of money to be won. I mean, just ask any of the guys mentioned in this video. Thank you for watching Athlete Affluence, and subscribe if you enjoyed.